Just thinking. Okay, there we are. We're live. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Give a few minutes for everybody to jump on here. I am going to share this right now on the Snowbike groups, and my phone's blowing up now, telling me that I'm live. So that's awesome. Whoops. Okay, there we go. So we're here with Jackie Riess and Haley Shanley. How are you ladies doing this evening?
Good. How are you, Kyle?
I'm doing really, really good. I'm just trying. I need like an assistant here to like help me do this, because I go live and then I'm trying to share the live link while I'm trying to do this. Aaron comments, yeah. He said router fix check. Yeah. So listen to what happened on the last one. I think like midstream, everybody lost me. It just shut down. And the problem was my router was jacked up. So yes, I bought a new router. It's super fast now. Hopefully we have no more issues. Hopefully we're good to go.
Solid.
I always got to have some sort of technical difficulty. So, all right. So I'm sharing this. So Aaron or whoever is on this, share this on the. If you guys can do me a favor, repost this right now. Share the link, and we're going to be blowing it up on all the different social media platforms. Unfortunately, if you're on Instagram, you're just going to have to join on Facebook, old school style. Facebook's it's like for old people now. I kind of feel like.
I wasn't going to say it.
I'm old, I guess now. Like I'm almost 39, and I'm like, man, I am getting old. Okay, there, I just posted it. Well, I find that Facebook still has its place. It still works well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they do own Instagram. So anyways, all right, well, let's get rocking. I just shared it. So we got, yes, as I said, Jackie Riess, Haley Shanley here from the Minne Moto show podcast. Awesome podcast. If you guys haven't listened in, go check it out. I use Podbean is how I listen to all my podcasts. So I found you guys on there. And so I'm pretty sure you're on as long as you have like an Apple, you went through the whole iTunes deal, you're on everything. So right on.
Yeah, Jackie crushes it. She handles all of our distribution and editing, so she's the mastermind behind the Minne Moto show.
Yeah, and I didn't even know we were on that. So
you're there. I found you. So right yeah, on. Kind of I was just gonna real quick get into. Let's see. I first reached out to Jackie. Gosh, I think it's been like 2 seasons ago. Was kind of when I saw you were, racing, and then I think you started the Snowbike Girls, right? The Snowbike Girls Instagram page. Yep. Right on. And so tell us a little bit about, before we kind of get into your bio and whatnot. Tell us a little bit about your Snowbike Girls Instagram page and how that kind of came about.
Yeah. So. When did I start it? Not last year, but the year before. It really came about because I was the only girl racing out here after the AMA series, lost that title and became the NASPA series. They kind of stuck out to the west, so there was no racing in the Midwest for women. So, at that point in time, the Snowcross series didn't have a women's class for snowbikes. So, I found that I wanted to create a stronger community to connect women in the sport. So I began Snowbike Girls, and now it's grown to women all across the world who snowbike. And I think that's just so cool that I get to connect these people and share cool photos and just show off that women can do this sport too, and women race and women ride, and women are badass in this sport as well.
Hell yeah. Well, I have, I'm a father of 4, and I have, my oldest is my son, and then I have 3 girls. So I'm all about the badassness of girls, and all my girls, they all know how to hunt. They all shoot guns with me. They ride dirt bikes. They get out and hang out with dad. And, we just have a good time. So yeah, I'm all about that as well. And I think it's awesome that you're doing that and that you started that. And it's been so cool to see how many women are getting involved in snowbiking. And as I've talked to, other women, and I can't remember what article it was, but there was a gal that wrote a really cool article on snowbiking. And she said, look, at the end of the day, especially like, I mean, if you're a small woman, like my wife's 5'5", she's tiny. And she's like, I can't ride a sled like a 180-pound, 5'11" dude. Like, I mean, I'm just not as big. And so she was talking about riding with her husband. And she's like, now on a snow bike, it's like, it's the great equalizer. I can go where they go. I can do everything that they're doing. And I'm not having to manhandle this giant sled. So I think in terms of the backcountry, right, snowbiking has been a game changer for women.
Yeah, and especially just now that Timbersled has that new S kit out, I think that takes away a lot of the intimidation factor for a lot of women of just not being able to touch the ground. Like I've had to learn how to not be able to touch the ground by 6 inches, and just learning how to stop and balancing and just getting used to that uncomfortability or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great option for women too. And like you said, just being smaller, you don't have that weight to throw around on something. So you can't quite put your machine, whatever you're riding, where you'd want it, like a man sometimes could if you're a little smaller. So, but just because you are smaller doesn't mean you can't. Like I've had to learn in racing how to have a different technique as opposed to guys that throw the bike where they want it. I have to ride a little bit differently to achieve the similar goals of racing.
Right. No, that makes sense. So what, so kind of getting into that, and then, and Haley, I'm going to have you take the floor here as well. Why don't we kind of get into just real quick your guys' bios so that we can get into more fun stuff as well. Not that your bios aren't fun, because it's awesome. I love learning about people and where they're from and how they got into this whole industry as a whole. So Haley, why don't we start with you, and you can kind of kick it off and tell us a little bit about where you're from, where you grew up, and how you got into this whole scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in kind of the recent future, if you will, I've known Jackie since January 2019, I believe it was, in Deadwood. Of course, she's racing pro snow bike, and I work for AMSOIL Championship Snowcross, otherwise known as ISOC or just Snowcross. So that's how I met her. But how I got into this, like, I'll just kind of start with way back in the day. I grew up in a town called St. Michael, Albertville, and that's in central Minnesota. It's kind of on Central Minnesota / the Twin Cities, if you're familiar with Minnesota. It's on the far northwest side of the city, one of the furthest out suburbs. So that's where I grew up. And I don't come from a motorsports family, actually. I, would watch NASCAR occasionally. I was a big Supercross, Motocross fan, tune into Arena Cross occasionally. And of course, just being from that area and having a lot of friends that rode snowmobiles, and that's, I was exposed to snowcross at a very early age. So that's kind of been my bread and butter, my roots as far as racing goes, and dabbled in dirt bikes a little bit. Learned how to ride when I was a senior in high school, or freshman in college, sometime around there. And then just getting back into riding this year, and that has been the best decision of my adult life. And
real quick, so when you got into riding, was it like motocross or just like single track type riding?
Motocross. Basically just putting around a cornfield and then kind of doing some just rolling everything on this backyard track. So that was where it started for me. And I didn't hit the single track for the first time until this last summer. I decided to race a hare scramble. Don't know what I was thinking, but I'm glad I did it, and I'll probably do another one now.
How'd that go?
It went. I finished. I was there.
Oh, it matters.
She was. Homies supporting homies. She was cheering me on. I finished dead last. I raced the women's class, and the women went out with the vets, the youth, I think C class. I decided to. I think women could have started like second or third to last tier, but I'm like, nope. I'm just gonna hang back and start with the very last group. It was very, very hard. I got one lap in. I think it took me an hour. And what was so exhausting is like I kept tipping the bike over. I kept crashing, and that just wiped me out. But I was not about to pull off. And actually the track that we raced at was ERX, which is my home track, and I worked there for a number of years. So I know all of the shortcuts around the facility, and oh Lord, was it tempting to just pull off and pull back to the pit and be like, oh Jackie, I finished the race, even though that would have been complete bullshit. But I finished the race, and I'm really excited to get better at them and keep at it. So I've ridden put a few more hours of single track in over the summer, and it's getting easier a little bit.
And what kind of bike did you race on?
I have a YZ125.
Awesome.
Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun, and it was growing up. My dream was always to work in dirt bike racing and to be like the next Aaron Bates or Jamie Little, because I'd always look up to these women and just think, oh my gosh, they are these badasses. So I'd be watching motocross or supercross, and I would be honestly paying more attention to the production in these women and the questions they're asking and that sort of thing. So it's always been the goal. The story
behind them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that was just the path I wanted to go down. Went to school for it, graduated, and I've worked in motorsports streaming for a number of years now. Actually, my husband and I, he started a company called Speed Shift TV. We recently just sold to a company, wrong side, Flow Sports.
That's way cool.
Yeah, so that's what we're doing now. Both work there full time, and it's been really cool to see Flow Sports in the last few months start to emerge into motorcycle racing.
So can you tell us real quick about that? So what is Speed Shift TV? That sounds super cool.
Yeah, so it is online streaming for motorsports. So we specialized in dirt track racing, so your modified sprint cars, late models, but we would also dabble in snowmobile racing, specifically ice oval and some snowbike and snowcross here and there. But dirt racing was definitely our bread and butter. So we just company built up, grew and grew and grew, and we like I said, ended up deciding to sell to Flow Sports, which is a very similar company. They don't have just Flow racing within Flow Sports. They have Flow basketball, Flow hockey, and they cover a lot of professional and college sports. So we became part of a very big network, which has been really cool. So and one thing that's awesome about Flow is they don't just do streaming, which is what Speed Shift did. They also do a lot of like editorial content and video content and blogs and just kind of a all-encompassing media outlet, which is awesome. Really neat. So it's never a dull moment.
And so are they're going to be covering obviously like all the snowbike stuff and everything, and
possibly. So we've been talking to Joe Duncan to try to get something worked out for the winter season. We just have to try, and we need to be able to make it work as far as schedule goes with Flow Sports. But I'm a big pioneer for it. I want to see it happen. We'll see. But I know our winter schedule is going to be busy with not just dirt track, but arena cross as well. We just signed deals with Hoosier Arena Cross and Kicker Arena Cross. So that might be keeping me busy.
Awesome. Well, that's super cool. Yeah. So, and is this Flow Racing? Like, I'm thinking of I buy the Flow Racing metal oil filters. It's not them, right?
No, it's not.
Okay,
them.
I was like, it's funny because I was like, Flow Racing. Yeah, I know those guys. Okay, different company.
Yeah. That's my full-time job technically, but outside of that, I work for, like I said, AMSOIL Championship Snowcross as a freelancer, and I'm one of their on-air talents. I do their reporting, some podium interviews, and work on the content team as well for them. And they actually in the summertime, they own a series called Championship Off-Road. So that's what they go and do in the summer, and I work for them as their reporter. So it's kind of a year-round deal with them, and I also take on other projects here and there with on camera, be it pro watercross is one I've done in the past, jet ski racing. I do some TV shows with Long Haul's King of the Road and Sledhead 24/7. So it's kind of what keeps me busy.
Right on. That's cool. Well, thanks for sharing. Now, can you just give us a little bit of background about, or like what is all entailed in, the different things that you're doing with the other companies, such as like, I know a lot of people are like, well, what the heck's an on-air personality? Like, what does that mean? Right. Like, obviously you're getting to interview people and go to races and all that kind of fun stuff. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll break it down as an example with snowcross. So basically what that looks like is I go to all the races. I've interviewed Jackie. I'll just show up in someone's trailer in the pits and be like, hey, you got a minute? And we'll shoot some content for the live stream, but it'll also be things outside of the races too. Like I might go to the practice track and go shoot some interviews there, or Might do some sit down interviews in a studio, some stand ups. So this will be for social media and for the broadcast. So basically, if they need someone to speak on camera, whether it's an interview or just me speaking directly to the audience, or whether that's live or through the stream, that's what I'm called to do.
Awesome. That's super cool. And yeah, we can definitely post all those links as well at the end of this. We'll have links to everything for everybody, so you can check out the podcast and their social media profiles. And of course, yeah, what your full-time gig too. So you guys sold to Flow Racing, right?
We did. Yep. We sold in June 15th, I think it was. And all of our full-time people came with us. So we kind of been divvying up into different departments of Flow Racing, which has been cool, but it's been an adjustment coming from a small company where you wear a lot of hats and you get to do a lot of things. And we still do it Flow, but it's a little bit more focused, on what you want to be doing and your strengths. So I go to the content team and get to do a lot of fun things there. I just got back from Tulsa, Oklahoma. We cover an event called the Chili Bowl, which is the world's largest midget race. So I'm just filming some content for them, and I get to work on all the different forms of racing we have within Flow Racing.
All right, when you said midget race, I'm like, midget race? Yeah, you're talking about the midget cars.
Midget cars, yep. I should. Yeah, I have to clarify.
That's all right. I was just like, when you said it, I'm like, midget race, it's okay. And then I'm like, oh yeah, the midget cars.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. Okay, I'm tracking. Yeah. Okay. We got it now. So what was it? I was gonna say, so tell us then how you got into snow biking and seeing snow biking and all that. Obviously what you've been doing, you're seeing them come on the scene. So tell us a little bit about your background there on the snow bike side of things.
Yeah, so my background on the snowbike side is relatively new, and Jackie has been the catalyst for that. We did not have pro snow bikes as part of the circuit until, was it 2019, Jackie? Was that the first year?
Last year was the first year it was called Pro Snowbike. Prior to that, it started in 2017, having a snowbike class in the AMSO Snowcross series. But last year was the first year they split it up into pro and amateur, and this coming season it will be pro and pro.
Gotcha.
Light.
Okay, I didn't know that about pro and pro light. I knew there was two classes, but yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. So snowbike racing had become a part of ISOC a few years ago, but it wasn't considered part of the night show. So part of the pro classes, and I think that was 2019, and now it's broken up into two classes: your pro and your pro light now. So that was really my first major exposure to it. And that same year, I did some work with the X Games qualifier at ERX. That was one of Joe Duncan's events. So I did some reporting there, and just coming from a background of being such a two-wheel enthusiast. And of course I have my love for snowcross and snowmobiles as well. It's like this blending of the best of both worlds. So I remember the first time I had actually experienced the snow bike in person. I'd seen it, you smell it, you hear it. That was actually when I was working for ERX. I think that might've been 2017 when we had the X Games qualifier there. I'm like, it looks cool in photos, because it is, but to experience it in person is like sensory overload. I'm like, this is badass. So, yeah, just there's definitely a future, and the future of snowbike racing is definitely going to explode, and it certainly has, and I want to continue to see that. But yeah, just had an interest for it, and I think where it really piqued my interest was when ISOC put it into the pro classes. That's when I think the whole industry is like, okay, as far as the snowmobile racing side goes, they're like, okay, this is legitimate. The racing's fantastic. Otherwise, ISOC would not have bumped it up to the pro ranks. And yeah, just been an avid follower of it, and then got connected with Jackie. We hit it off right away, and she actually let me ride her snow bike for my first few laps last November, and that was also kind of another catalyst behind me wanting to get a dirt bike, get back into riding, because it was just such a cool experience. So that might be a few years down the road to getting a snow bike, but it definitely lit a fire in me. So that's been my background in it.
Awesome. Well, tell us about, I love hearing people's first time, story on a snow bike. And I've been pretty fortunate to obviously take quite a few folks, just friends, and now doing it as a job on their first trip ever. And I always love hearing people's experiences. So tell us about that. What was that like?
It was a struggle for me because like I knew how to ride a dirt bike. But at that point it had been a fat minute since I've ridden too. So not only am I trying to figure things out on this machine that in ways is nothing like a dirt bike, but I'm also trying to remember basic things like, well, what's a clutch? How does it work? Like getting started. So it was Jackie had taken me to the start line at ERX Motor Park and just got to, do a little loop here on flat ground. And that was very, very hard compared to once I got a little bit more comfortable doing with that. Then she put me out on the snowcross and snowbike track. And that was exponentially easier because we had so much deeper snow. It wasn't flat ground. It just felt more forgiving. So then I was able to give her the beans a little bit. And it was a lot of fun. But definitely it was hard. That thing is so heavy. And like Jackie had said, like my feet don't touch the ground either. She and I are about the same height. So when it starts to tip, I'm like, oh, she going. So I'm pretty sure I tipped it over once or twice. One for sure was against like the cement wall on the edge of the track. And it tipped it over and my definitely hit it with my helmet. But I lived to tell the tale, but it was rough, but it was a good time. And it didn't sour me. My experience definitely didn't sour me from getting back on a snow bike one day.
So you didn't get a ride then. It was really just all on a track, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Never been out west, but it's just been on a track.
Oh, so you've never even been able to like get in the powder, huh?
Nope. And I think that would be the legit experience. That would be the good test.
That's the linchpin. It's like I tell everybody when I first take them, I'm like, look, we're going to get off the trail as fast as we can. I'm like, we're going to grin and bear it. And then I was like, then once we get off the trail, I said, then it'll start to click. And I just took a guy for the first time on Saturday, and he's a motocross guy. And I mean, yeah, he was kind of just going slow on the trail. And I was like, come on, dude. I was like going up on the side and showing him, and he was just going kind of slow. So I'm talking him through it. And as soon as we got off the trail, he's like, okay, now I get it. Like I feel it now, and you start to feel that flow, that flotation that you get in the powder. So well, hopefully you can get out and go this season.
I hope so too. And yeah, that's exactly what you said. And from my little experience there, that's exactly what it was for me, is compared to that flat ground, that starting line area, compared to when she let me go out on the track, like that was a game changer. So I can only imagine what it must be like in the mountains, and hopefully I'll be able to experience that one day soon.
Heck yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks for sharing then. So Jackie, we're gonna turn the floor over to you. So tell us about where you grew up, how you got into motorsports and snowbiking as a whole, and kind of to where you're at today.
Yeah, so I've been racing motocross my entire life. Grew up in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, which is a suburb of Minneapolis. Not necessarily the greatest motocross place. But when I was little, my dad got me a PW50, and I would ride in circles around our suburban house. And eventually I got tired of that, and we went to our local motocross track and was hooked ever since. So I've been racing, like I said, racing motocross forever, locally, regionally, nationally, kind of done the whole thing. I went up to Canada last summer, and I guess 2 summers ago now, and raced WMX East and finished 7th. So that's pretty cool.
And so real quick, what is, as you're kind of saying the different, like WMAX East, like, can you explain what that is? Because for us non-racers, I have zero idea what that is or what it means.
Yeah, so WMX is the pro women's motocross up in Canada. The United States no longer has a professional women's motocross series, which is why I basically went up to Canada to pursue that dream. Here we just have amateur racing at either the local level, and then if you want to get to the national level, you have to compete through to get to Loretta Lynn's national, you have to compete at area, regional, and then the national qualifier races. So it's really unfortunate that the U.S. Doesn't have the professional series anymore, and they just call the amateur national the Pro Women's Motocross Championship, which isn't quite the same, but yeah, that's the difference, if that makes sense.
Got it. No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So the snowbike thing, I was on J-term from college, and my friend Shayna, she was going out to a race in Morgan, Utah. I think that's where it was. And her dad couldn't go with her. And I was like, well, I'm home for another couple weeks. Like, I'll come with you. So we're going out there, we're driving. She lives in South Dakota. So I drive from Minneapolis to South Dakota. And if we get in the car, we're leaving and we're heading out to Utah. And she goes, by the way, you're going to race. I said, yeah, okay, sure. And yep, turned out I rode for the first time, raced the same day, and was 3rd out of 4. So
pretty good for your first race.
Yeah, not bad. Wasn't last, which is cool. So I ended up racing a couple more races in 2017 of the AMA Snowbike series. And then the next season, I had some help and was able to race, I think, all but one of the AMA Snowbike series, which I finished 2nd in behind Shayna. And then from there, unfortunately, the AMA series just became NASPA, like I said earlier, and it moved out west. So then I was like, well, I still kind of want to race. And I ended up starting to race in the Amsoil Snowcross series, which, like I said earlier, was just for the men. So I just started racing guys and have been doing that ever since, and plan to continue to do that for a little bit longer here.
Okay, so hold on. Let's not just glaze over this. Okay, so now you race and you're racing against guys only.
Yep.
Wow,
yeah,
that's impressive.
Thanks.
That's awesome. So how is that? Like, I mean, how is like, how does that feel? Like, what's the vibe like for that? I remember when I growing up, I used to wrestle, and like, there would always be like the one girl that'd come wrestle. We're all like, what do we do here? Obviously a little different wrestling, but yeah, how does that go?
There's a target on my back. Like, nobody wants to get beat by a ponytail, basically. That's how it's been my whole life. I've raced the women's class, but I've also grown up racing the guys too. So it's not so different, but yeah, definitely, like, once you get in front of a guy, like if I make a pass and guy sees it's me, there is like immediate instinct to just try their hardest. Like, even if they're out of control, even if it's not like, if a guy had passed them, like, it's immediately just like,
right.
let's hit and like go after it. Like, I've been taken out quite a few times and run over. Literally last year, someone took me out, their ski ran over my handlebars, broke the clutch perch, like literally the metal perch. And I was like, well, I'm glad that wasn't my hand. Well, turns out the track ran over my hand, and yeah, nothing was broken, but it was gnarly and chopped off the back portion of my kit. And it was yeah, that was not a great weekend of racing, but that's not the only time, and it's probably not going to be the last. And you just kind of got to go into it knowing that things like that are going to happen and do your best to overcome, I guess.
Now, within like motorsports, so not that like, I mean, I'm all for it. Like, I've always been all for it. I'm like, shoot, if a girl could come in, a woman can come in and beat a guy, like, freaking do it. Like, I'm all for it, right? So, but I know, like, obviously in professional sports, right, you don't have women and men playing together. Like, I'm thinking basketball, football, baseball, that. So within motorsports, why is it allowed? And I'm just ignorant. And I guess I'm just thinking like, well, you're on motor, I mean, they're the same bikes, so to speak. It's really more just about ability at that point, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you're not going to be out there and you're not going to be a danger to other people on the track, I think in motorsports, it's kind of always been about skill and not so much about gender. Like, if you look at motocross right now, Jordan Jarvis is qualifying for professional motocross. She has her supercross license. She's going to try and qualify for supercross in 250 East, I think, is what she's going to race. And, she can do it. And it hasn't always been, growing up, it's been okay. It hasn't been, in 4th grade, we separate them and they never play each other ever again. Like, growing up, I've always had the opportunity to race one or the other or both. And so I think it's just more acceptable in the culture to grow up and race whatever you want to race. And if you're good enough, you're good enough.
That's cool. No, I love it. Like my youngest daughter, you know, she's 10 and it's funny you're talking about PW50. I got her a PW80.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I think it's great that that it's more of a level playing field in terms of, you know, hey, you can go and compete with the boys. And now, like you said, there's kind of a target on your back at that point, right?
Always. There's always going to be a target on your back, you know, and that's just kind of the way our society has it structured. You know, we're talking right now, like, you know, your skill is what matters to you. Well, when you get down to everyday life, that's not necessarily how things work out.
Yeah, I wish it was always like that, right? I think within, you know, and it's obviously getting better, and especially within certain fields. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's you know, it's what are we all capable of? So, well, that's cool. That I didn't realize that you're racing against guys and stuff. That's super cool. And actually, I did see it was one of your podium finishes. I think you got second, you know, and there was two guys there. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like you're racing against dudes. That's awesome.
Yeah. I've had 3 podium finishes in Deadwood. The past couple of years, it's overlapped with X Games, so I've had less competition, I guess, and so it's really exciting and feels like home kind of a race to me. And that's the first time I met Haley, and so yeah, I love Deadwood, and being up on that podium is.
And where's Deadwood? That's in Minnesota.
South Dakota.
Oh, South Dakota. Okay.
In the Black Hills, like as far west as you can get in South Dakota. So it's actually really hilly and beautiful out there compared to the rest of South Dakota.
And she has her own like fan section that comes out to Deadwood too. It's
I've seen that. I've actually seen that. Yeah, on some of your posts.
Yeah, a family, a group of girls, and they saw me the first year I was out there, and they were like, Angela, she's I call her my moto mom. She comes to some of the races with me. She's standing there, and the girls are behind her, and they're like, I think that's a girl out there. Awesome. And she turns around, she's like, yeah, that's Jackie. Let's cheer for her. And literally the first lap, you come around, and the Snowbike class is the first race of the night show. So they send off the fire. Like the fire shoots off the finish line, and I'm coming down, and I'm in like, I don't know, second or third, and I can hear them just screaming. And I'm like, that's gotta be pretty loud if, you know, the bikes, the rest of the crowd, like everyone is just screaming. So that was so awesome. And every year I just look forward to going back there just to see them and having like a great morale around the race. And I love it, and I totally look forward to it.
That's awesome. Well, I got to say, like, you know, as a father of 3 girls, like, and I push my girls. I mean, I tell them, like, dude, you do whatever makes you happy, you know, whether that's, you know, whatever it is. So it's always awesome to see other women in any sport or any industry that's pushing the envelope, that are the pioneers, that are showing other women and girls, like, look, you can do this just fine. Like you can roll with the guys. Like don't worry about it, you know. Yeah. And so that's awesome. So yeah. So getting back to was there anything else you wanted to go through, kind of your bio?
I mean, the only reason I'm still in this sport is because of Yeti SnowMax. Honestly, you know, financially, they make it possible for me to keep racing on my own. I mean, I spend pretty much everything I earn. I save over the summer, and I spend it all on racing in the winter. And with their help, with support of the bike, it makes it doable for me. So definitely wouldn't be here without them. And yeah.
Heck yeah. No, big shout out to Yeti. Obviously, they're awesome. They're helping sponsor me this season. Super cool company. Great people there. Shout out to Martin, who I see is on here. He just he actually just, okay, let's pull up Martin's question. He said he's asking this to
you. I wonder who that was. Yeah, that's an interesting story.
Let's hear it. Let's go into the story.
So last year I had the opportunity to race both X Games qualifiers. So I raced out in Colorado, and then I raced the one at Year X. And generally it's a 2-day thing. So the first day they run, you know, the pro class and all the sport classes. And then the next day they run the pro class and all the sport classes. Well, at Year X, it was smashed into one day. So I'm signed up for both of the pro qualifiers and both of the women's class, which is 2 motos of each women's class. So we're at 4. And then 2 heats and 8 heats total and 2 LCQs. I raced 10 races over 50 laps in one day, and I was smoked.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, I literally, by the end of the day, like I have never not raced a race. I've never quit. I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Like the last race of the day, I was like, I just want to go home.
How long is each race? I mean, you said 10 races?
Yeah, like 4 or 5 laps. So that's a lot, plus practice in the morning. And I was, I don't think I realized what I was getting myself into. But it was an experience, I'll tell you that.
I bet. Holy cow. That sounds, walk us through, like, you know, you said something that I thought was really interesting. And I think this is something for people who aren't in the racing that don't understand and don't necessarily appreciate. But as I've met other racers, you know, last year I got to meet Darren Meese and Tommy, oh my gosh, what's Tommy's last name? Tommy Thompson. Geez, I'm like, I know it's like, yeah, him and his dad, super cool guys, right? And, you know, I was listening to Tommy's story and he's talking about growing up racing with his dad, right? And his dad being there. And they were just going into like, what is involved in that? And like, holy cow, talk about some time, energy, money, you name it. Like when people do that, like it's kind of like all in, right? And so to your point, you know, when you're super dedicated to that, you're like, hey, I'm working so that then I can race when the season comes. And so like that to me just shows like how dedicated the racers are and how much they love it, that they're willing to literally kind of go all in, so to speak, where, you know, somebody like myself, well, now I'm all in, but, you know, other guys where we do this as a hobby, we ride powder, you know, we're not racing or even just racing as a hobby, which is cool. But to see someone like yourself and other racers where it's like, no, this is what you're living and breathing and what you're doing day in and day out when the season starts. Like, walk us through that, because that sounds like that could be exhausting.
Yeah, and stressful. Like, you know, doing it mainly on my own financially, stress is my biggest issue. You know, my bare bones budget just to go racing each winter is about 10 to 15,000, which is a significant amount of money of just race fees, of just travel. And that's me. I just bought a new van. You know, that's me. No hotels, just staying in the van. You know, like I bought, like, I'm so dedicated.
Down by the river.
I bought a new van to go.
I had to.
Free candy.
Yeah, right.
Van down by the river.
Fran,
Please tell me you guys have seen that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Her name's Fran. Okay, she has a nice name.
What'd you decide on for a name?
But you know, that's just what we've always done and how we've always done it. You know, I grew up racing motocross every weekend of the summer, and that's what I loved, and chasing that goal of being the champion at the end of the summer, or doing your best. And, you know, whenever I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Like, you know, I feel like I have a point to prove, and that I can't not do it, I guess.
It's in your blood.
One of the things Jackie and I have talked about too is, you know, you have all of these stresses and these obligations. Like if we're going to talk just about snowcross, the same things that the snowmobile races do, but that's maybe privateer snowcross racers, because in snowbike there is VHR, but right now there's not much for big teams where you can just, you know, show up and you can race for a living, at least for the season. And we want to see the sport get to that point. But pretty much everyone out there is going to echo what Jackie says, and that it's pretty much a privateer effort. You and your mechanic, if you have one, if you're not working on your own equipment all weekend. So it's definitely a grind.
Yeah, definitely a big dedication to it, you know, like to invest this much time and money and effort and physical fitness and nutrition and, you know, just everything into yourself and being the best you can be, it's a lot. And the top people in our sport are still, you know, running like that. And that's kind of crazy, you know, but we have seen substantial growth in the past 4 or 5 years in racing and in the sport in general. And hopefully 2020 and 2021 doesn't kill us. But, you know, I hope it continues to grow like that. And eventually, like you said, we get some more support and more eyes on our sport.
I was trying to unmute there. So the sport, I mean, of snow biking, like you said, the last 4 or 5 years has blown up, right? And it's just getting bigger. I mean, more and more people they see this, they're enamored by it. They're like, whoa, that looks super cool, right? Especially you see somebody out in the backcountry slaying powder, doing jumps, you know. Yeah, I mean, Cody Matterchuk, you know, Darren, I mean, all these guys that are doing the big stuff, Darren Bearcloth, you know, Regan, everybody. And so that's getting the eyeballs, you know, they see the Red Bull video. So do you two see this being as big as snowmobile snowcross in the next 5-10 years at some point? What's your thoughts there?
I can definitely see it. I think we're seeing such a positive, you know, growth and increase right now, and that is amazing. And I think the industry this year alone is taking such good steps to facilitate that growth. The Snowbike Cross Series that's going to be racing at ERX, I know it just got pushed back to a January start because of COVID, but one of their plans is to the day before each of the races, they're having free demo days to the public. So you can come on out. I don't even know if you have to have your own helmet or equipment, but they'll have everything there. You can hop on a snow bike. But also now Timber Sled has the kits for, you know, smaller bikes. So those steps alone are huge. ISOC presenting or bringing on a pro light, or what was amateur snow bike last year. That's a big step. So we're seeing steps. And of course, you never want to, this is just one industry that's been, of course, affected by the pandemic. So I think we'll continue to have growth, but we're having growth despite it. But to get back to your question about, do I think it can be as big, if not bigger than, sorry, were you asking if it's going to be as big as snowmobile racing?
Yeah, exactly. If you guys think it'll at least be as big as snowmobile snowcross someday.
Absolutely. And you know, and I'm not talking just snowcross. I'm talking about the sport of snowmobiling as a whole, you know, be it ice oval, you know, trail riding, what have you. Like, we unfortunately are seeing a little bit of a decline, and that's not just on the racing side. That's with OEMs. I've heard some numbers that sales are not, you know, not on the incline. But that also, a lot of things can affect that. So I should preface that by saying that the snow you get any given year is going to affect that year and the next year. So those are just some numbers that I have heard of. I don't think snowmobiling is going away anytime soon, but the trend that I'm looking at is I see snow bikes, you know, they're going to be up there and giving sleds a run for their money. And you're hearing stories and you know, testimonies from hardcore snowmobile guys and girls who have ridden their whole lives, who would say, you know, when it comes to the backcountry country, they would take a snow bike any day because of how nimble it is, and you can keep up with the sleds, and you can, in fact, navigate a lot niftier and quicker. So it's getting there.
Yeah, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but just my, you know, rough estimation. And as I've talked to at this point, I don't even know how many sledders that are now snow bikers, but it's probably like 9 out of 10, like 95%, when they're like, man, I rode a snow bike and I sold my sled. Because especially if you do backcountry stuff, especially if you have a lot of timber, like where we live in Montana and Idaho, which obviously is kind of, you know, snow bike mecca where it started. Man, it's tough getting back in there on a snowmobile, right? And so the way I kind of have told people, I'm like, you know, when you're snowmobiling, you're picking your way through stuff to get to the zones, to get to the riding, right? And I said the difference is on a snow bike, everything is now fun. Everything is riding. You're not picking your way to get to a spot. You're just riding from the second you get off that trail. you're like, where can we go? What can we do? And so I think that's where it's really, it's a whole different animal in the sense of now you can go and get in the backcountry into areas, which can be a good and bad thing, right? Where before you just couldn't do on a snowmobile. And so I'm really like on the racing side too. Yeah. I mean, just from what you guys have seen, obviously it's growing. What do you guys think is and feel free to interject as well, Jackie, to layer on what Haley was saying, but where do you guys think at this point it needs to go to, or what needs to happen in order for it to kind of go to the next level? I think we're all at this point of, well, when we get an OEM to make a snow bike, then we're talking, right?
Yeah, I think that would solve the issue of the average consumer, of someone who just wants to get into it and just wants to get a bike and do that. The big issue that Haley and I have talked about on our podcast is that you need a way to get kids into the sport. My whole story is that I grew up racing motocross, and I started when I was 4 years old. I couldn't have started snowbiking when I was 4 years old. That's just not feasible. Put a 4-year-old on a 450, So our big I mean, maybe your kid, maybe my kid. We can test it out on your kid. But you need a way to get someone hooked at a young age and say, Mom, Dad, I really love this. I really want to do this for a really long time, and keep them in the sport and have places to ride, places to race, that are accessible to people, that are affordable to people. For a long time. And another point we've talked about is that going to race the national circuit, the National AMSOA Snowcross Series, is not particularly inviting. It's kind of intimidating. It's actually very intimidating to someone who's never raced before to say, hey, come to the biggest race of the year in your area and, just go try it. That's like, scary. Like, it's intimidating. So definitely need a way to get kids into it and keep them into it. A safe, inviting places to race. And I think Snowbike Cross is really starting to get that point, that, you need to have a local type of series to get people introduced to the sport. And I had one more thing, Haley. Can you read my mind and and tell me what I was thinking?
I guess this is more of like an observation. I know you and I have talked about it. Just one moment I want to rewind to last year when we went to New York, to Salamanca for the New York National. We had a fan up at the podium, and that's part of my job, is do the fan engagement. And so I'm just asking her like small talk before we get to trivia or whatever it was. And I said, okay, who'd you come here to watch? The sleds or the snow bikes? And, for the longest time, the core audience is snowmobile fans, right? Well, what'd she go and say? She said the snow bikes, baby. And I'm like, that is so wicked. So I'm really glad I asked that. So it was one of those, like for Jackie and I, it was one of those aha moments. Like, you know what? Yeah. These snow bikes are making a difference, and they are catching on, even with our we call them the purists in snowmobile racing, the people who are just hardcore sledders. They're catching on to it. And that is phenomenal.
Very much so. And I think New York especially has a lot of influence by Jesse Kirchmeier. He loves it. He has his whole family come out, all of his friends, all of his motocross friends, because he lives, 30, 40 minutes away. So it's definitely a bigger deal there. And I think he has a big influence on New York. And the other point I was trying to remember earlier is, like you say, these purist snowmobilers, they might not be our target audience. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of motocross racers, a lot of local pro motocross racers, who race Millville, the Millville National, but are looking for something else to do in the winter. I think that should be a target audience more so, because what we have here is motocross, is supercross, arena cross style racing. And especially out in the Midwest, that's specifically, I think, a good target of who is going to get into this sport right now.
You absolutely hit the nail on the head there by saying they may not be our target audience, because I think that anyone who appreciates motorcycle racing, supercross, motocross, I think that they can appreciate snowcross, because it's high flying, it's very similar, and vice versa. So it just, snowcross for a long time has just been tailored to that audience. But that's one thing that I'm excited that Snowbike's bringing into it. And I think AMSOIL Championship Snowcross has a unique opportunity to market to this crowd that's new to them, that, as you know, snowcross, it can be kind of regional. We have our pockets, New York, the Midwest, Canada, and some series up there. But the motocross world is expansive, and it's not only across the U.S. coast to coast, but around the world. And that snowcross audience also goes over to Europe. We have a lot of riders from Northern Europe who also race moto in the summer. So there's such a unique opportunity right now to be able to cross-pollinate these two just badass communities, and I love to see it.
Yeah, I think what you guys both said, and especially there at the end, Haley, the way I'm looking at it is snowmobiling is this little thing, right? It's like, okay, here's snowmobiling. And if you snowmobile, you snowmobile. But if you snowbike, you might dirt bike and, motocross. And so to your point, it actually is a bigger world. It's a bigger universe of motorcycles in general, right? And so I think anybody who rides a motor, even just a regular motorcycle, but particularly obviously dirt bikes, motocross, whatever, and if they're watching that stuff, they can see that and really appreciate it for what it is. Like, oh, this is cool. This is a motorcycle, it's got this crazy kit on it. And I think that the universe of the snowbike world is actually more expansive, and I think we will see it continue to blow up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's so I wrote down a couple questions when you guys were saying there. So are you finding, and Jackie, you mentioned this, like, so Midwest, it's the one area of the country I've never been to. I've been to the East Coast, I've been to the South, I've been all over, but I've never been to the Midwest just because for work and everything, it just never took me there, right? And so what is the snow like there? I mean, do you guys get a ton of it? I mean, I see the videos and whatnot, but like, is 2 feet a good snow day? Is like, what is the snowpack like? So that you have these guys that are riding moto, it's like, okay, there's snow from December to April. So it's like, well, you got to have something to do. And that's where now maybe they're looking at, hey, let me start riding a snow bike.
Exactly. So, this year has been weird. Like you said earlier, we were supposed to get all this snow and we have absolutely zero snow. Every snowcross track right now is man-made snow. Down here, up past Duluth. So
it's cold. You're just not getting the moisture.
Yep. Yeah. So it's honestly, it's been warm too. We've had a few days of like 40 and it just isn't going to snow like that. But on an average year, we have a decent amount of snow, enough to make these snowcross tracks. Can you repeat your question, please?
Oh, no, that's okay. It was kind of a long question. I was just saying, like, with, the winter, like how long, first of all, is the winters there? And so that these guys that are doing moto, they're looking at it, they're like, yeah, this is something I can do in the wintertime.
Yeah, it's 6 months of the year. I mean,
so it's like here, like Montana, pretty much any northern state at this point.
Yep. So, November through April, our motocross series start. They schedule them for early April, but usually ends up being late April that we can start riding dirt bikes again. They end in first weekend of October. So, that does leave a long time for somebody to be like, what am I going to do? A lot of people drive down south and race motocross down south sometimes, especially over Christmas, winter break, kids for school and whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're starting to look at snow bikes as, I can, especially like I was saying earlier, the guys, the local pro motocross racers who have a 450, that they just need to get the kit. They already have the race bike, that's modded a little bit and would be, good to race on. That's the one big step I find for people who don't already have a 450. Like, that's a big ask to go buy a 450 and then go buy a snow bike kit.
Yeah.
If you already have that first step in place, it's a lot easier to get someone to, to take that second step. And so, especially with women, I find that, I guess you probably wouldn't know that in women's motocross, in the women's class, the maximum CC is 250. So, women wouldn't have a 450 because why would they? You can't race it in the women's class unless you were going to race it against the men. So, you know, that's an added barrier for women, just to get that second bike. Like, I have 2 dirt bikes. One of them is dedicated snow bike. One of them's my dirt bike that I race in the summer. So, you know, to the average girl that just wants to get into the sport, or the average racer that just wants to get into the sport, that's a big ask, to get that bike and that kit.
And the kits themselves, like Jackie, and you guys actually both touched on, is like they are meant for that good deep powder that you have out west. But also, if you don't have that deep powder from out west, that you'll want to be on a snowcross and snow bike track, something that's groomed and broken up. Can you technically ride on trails? Yeah, but it's not going to be the same experience. So I feel like in the Midwest, like you kind of have to have the intention of either going out to race start out with amateur, or maybe just jump to pro if you're feeling confident enough, or you work up to that point, or have intentions to make some trips out west because that's where they really thrive. But yeah, it's possible to go joyride around the Midwest, especially on a good snow year. There might even be some really good spots in Michigan to actually go ride them off the trails a little bit. But that's kind of where it's at here in the Midwest. And you know what? There are plenty of people who own snowmobiles here who never touch the trails. They get their sled and they only get it to make road trips out west for the year. That's kind of the expectation.
Wow. I didn't know that. I didn't know that people literally just like get sleds to come out here. That's a haul.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Like my family members, they live in Brookings, South Dakota, so on the east side of South Dakota, and they really only ride them in Wyoming or even in the Black Hills. They're not trail riders, and that's not super unique. You'll get people that they either love the trails, and their trail sled's just not going to be for mountains, or they'll have a separate one for the mountains. So there's definitely exceptions to that. Yeah. But I feel like in the Midwest, like you kind of have to, if you're going to get into this, which you should, like definitely look for opportunities like ride days at any of the local snowcross tracks, and especially, like, I can't preach this enough, the pro light snow bike class within ISOC. It is not, Jackie, you mentioned how it's intimidating. It's at these big national events. I believe it's still going to be during the night show, but this is the entryway to racing a snow bike.
Is that what pro light means? Like, it's like, okay, it's the beginning of the pro class kind of deal. Like, well, I mean, it's like novice or.
So there was some controversy over what to call the class last year with some of the potential rule changes that, as you grow, there's growing pains. So people didn't like the name amateur because they felt that they were better than amateur,
Got it.
So the snowcross classes go from sport to pro light to pro. So to accommodate for that, people, now we have pro and pro light, which is based on the snowmobile classes.
Right.
Yeah. But, okay. In addition to racing in the pro light class of the National AMSOIL Series, they have a snowbike class at the regional races and at ERX at their grassroots snowcross races. They also have a snowbike class. At least they did last year. I'm not sure if they do this year, but that in addition to the snowbike cross series, there's a lot of ways to get out and ride out in the Midwest. And, Haley, we were talking a little bit about trail riding here in the Midwest. Like, some of the states, Minnesota specifically, you cannot ride a snow bike on the trails. Like, what? It's illegal. Yeah, there's weird, like, it's not a snowmobile. They call it a motorcycle. There's weird, like, sanctioning of what this machine is. So it's illegal to do it, which I don't particularly want to go just ride, whooped out trails all day. That doesn't really sound particularly fun.
That's so fun.
So that presents another challenge. And you mentioned Michigan. That's on my bucket list for sure. Up in the UP of, if they have a good snow year, it looks awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Martin just said too, he said it's not legal in Quebec. Wow. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Huh, that's wild.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, that puts a damper on things if you can't even ride it.
Right. Like if you don't have like a farm with a bunch of land where you can just go out in the field and, putz around or whatever.
I forget how spoiled we are over here in the West sometimes. Like I was telling people, I'm like, I have 2.5 million acres that we can go ride on our snow bikes. I'm like, that's like bigger than some states,
Yeah.
And it's just literally like right here. I mean, right where we live, and it's incredible. We're super blessed and fortunate to have that. And so, yeah, for somebody that doesn't have that, if you don't have trails and if you don't have anywhere else to ride, it's like, well, you can watch it on TV, right?
And your state it seems to have embraced it with open arms.
Oh,
so I
yeah.
guess that's like a question I'm very curious about to ask anyone tuned in here is, how can we go about, maybe, I think it's an awareness thing, what are these machines? They're not just, the people who ride them are not these deviants who are going to go tear up your precious snowmobile trails. Like, they want to preserve these trails.
They actually do less damage on the trails. Like, it's the snowmobilers that they whoop everything out. When you go on a snow bike trail, it's literally flat, straight. Like it's not all whooped out because you're not sitting there goosing it over and over, tearing it up.
Exactly. So it's that awareness piece and, just teaching people that, and I think these snowmobile clubs too, like these are the people who are maintaining the trails and putting all the hard work and the money into it. And that is amazing. But imagine what could happen too, if you open that community to snow bike riders. And I think that'll help with the awareness piece and, help be a part of it.
And it's up to us as snow bikers. It's up to us to get involved and do that, right? Like my snowmobile club here, the Flathead Valley Snowmobilers, they're awesome, super cool. They're all awesome guys. They totally embrace snow biking. I'm involved. There's other snow bikers, and like we have to go out there and get involved. Like somebody's not going to do it for you. So for anybody listening, take the initiative, get involved in your local club, pay the they're usually like $20 dues or something stupid, right? Make sure you're paying the fees, help out, go and spread the awareness. Take guys out and say, hey, you want to go ride? Let's go ride. You can try my bike out. And that's what I find is when you do that and people embrace it. This Junior J.R. Robinson, he mentioned something on here and said people don't like the noise. Yeah, but a snowmobile is not quiet either. I mean, at the end of the day, like sleds aren't quiet. So I can't really say that like, which one's louder than the other. They're both freaking loud when you get on it, So yeah, I think like you said, Haley, we just have to spread the awareness and we've got to get out there in the public eye and with our local chapters.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's definitely hugely important. Here's another question. This one was for you, Haley, and then I got a couple other questions here. He said, ask about the bakery and how she funds her racing. So I know I have seen you posting your cookies and your other stuff that you're doing. So tell us about that and can people go buy stuff from you? Like how can people help out there?
Yeah, that is the Jr27 Bakery. That is all Jackie.
I know. Heck yeah.
So I started the bakery. It began as we were giving cookies to our friends, and eventually people were like, hey, do you guys have any cookies? Like, became known as like the cookie ladies, me and Angela, who I mentioned earlier, who's like my moto mom. Well, eventually you're like, I can turn this into a business, like, absolutely. So I started actually selling my goods. We had a few bake sales here and there, but I turned into the Jr27 Race Bakery last November. And, it's what really keeps me afloat with racing. Like I said earlier, I have a small budget, but it's still a lot of money. And so I've been baking away. Like I told you earlier, Kyle, I baked 400 cookies today, which, just before Christmas. So I'm very thankful to have people that, want to support my racing. And if they want to continue to support me, they can go to my website, JackieRiess.com, JackieRiess. And on the homepage, there's an order form there.
Awesome. And what kind of what's the types of cookies and whatnot that you're cooking and baking?
Yeah, so I do all kinds of. I do mainly cookies and breads. So I have chocolate chip, snickerdoodle, my famous brownie cookie. So it's not quite a chocolate cookie, but it's like thick like a brownie. Those sell pretty good. And the monster cookies definitely sell super well. They're oatmeal with peanut butter, chocolate chips, and M&Ms. monster cookie. Yeah.
That sounds epic.
And they're as big as your head. So
nice.
Yeah, and I also sell a lot of breads, like I said. So banana, chocolate chip banana, apple cinnamon, which that one goes over really well, and then zucchini too. And people tend to get scared by the zucchini because it has a vegetable in it, but it's actually really great.
Zucchini bread's the best. I love it.
Yep.
Now, how did that come about? How did the baking thing, like, is that just kind of more of a side hobby kind of deal?
Like I said, we were just doing it to bring our friends cookies. Like,
yeah,
it was just like something that we kind of like to do. I was not doing it at like full production volume.
Right. But like growing up, did you do a lot of baking and stuff, or?
Not really. I mean, just, at the holidays and whatever. So it's something I enjoy doing, but it wasn't ever, cookies are bomb. Yes. Thanks, Dave. And Martin. Every time Martin comes to the US, he likes to buy cookies. So
heck yeah.
I appreciate it, guys.
That's awesome. I'm all about the cookies too. I was telling you, my wife, she makes macarons and oh my gosh, they're so good. So yeah, she just cooked 52 dozen for a holiday deal that she just did. So I could appreciate that. Our kitchen was chaos and cookies everywhere, and I'm just like, all right, keep at it. Yeah.
I tend to go with the more simple, like scoop onto the tray kind of thing. That sounds more technical than what I'm.
Oh man, I've seen her cry over batches of cookies that didn't work, and literally, I think when she was learning how to do it, she cooked, I mean, probably 100 batches, and it finally took her to perfect it. So Jake's asking, he said, are you going to have an on-site bake sale at ERX?
That's the plan. I'm planning on having them
nice.
At each of the snowcross races. Unfortunately, at ERX, I'm not sure if they've seen this or not, but the only spectators allowed are those crew members of the racers. So at this first ERX National, it's, each racer gets 3 pit passes for their crew. So unfortunately, it's not going to be the biggest bake sale there, but I am a little more optimistic of the other races. Minnesota is pretty strict right now, but the Dakotas, Wisconsin, Iowa all seem to be a little more open. But the plan is to bring more cookies wherever I go.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Well, people can show up just to buy your cookies then.
I'll meet them at the gate.
Come out in the parking lot. You're going to be like slaying cookies out there, like $20 bills. People are like, what are you doing over here selling your drug cookies?
I have had requests for that. They're
like, I'm sure.
You could make them special. I'm like, no.
Got to be in the right state for that.
Yeah, not Minnesota right now.
Canada, Montana now, apparently. So when you guys were talking about snowbikers, snowmobilers, do you feel or find, is there any like animosity or any, does you feel like any bad blood really? Like the snowmobilers, what are they like? What's the deal? Are they like, oh, you're infringing on our territory or what?
I think I have to ask them for sure specifics. Jackie, you'd obviously know more because you're in the thick of it, but I think there's just kind of like this attitude from some, not all, especially the snowmobilers who don't ride dirt bikes. They don't have that. It's not as relatable to them. They don't follow the racing. I feel like there is probably some riders who just see snow bikes as a good filler in the show, and that's definitely not the case because during the night show, they're one of our pro divisions. So I think there's those kind of attitudes out there. But Jackie, like, what do the snow bikers think? Do they care, or is any of these negative feelings just one-sided and coming from the sledders?
I think they're pretty one-sided. Like, it's the whole quad versus dirt bike thing on a motocross track. Each has their respective way of riding that affects the track differently. So the big thing from the snowmobilers is that, you guys make a horrible track. The lines are all messed up, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, have you seen the track after a snowmobile? Like, our second moto is whooped out. It's totally, as Dusty and I call them, sled holes. Like, they're just, you'll get lost in them. Like, it's just a whole different way you need to ride a track, and technique and how the track forms. And Two totally separate things. So the snowbikers are kind of like, whatever, but we have it good because iStock grooms the track before we go out for us. So we get a fresh track. And
yeah, I was going to say, do they not groom it then for the snowmobilers after you guys ride?
No, but our lines are flat. So this every time, a snowmobile comes into a corner, they come in, they hit their brakes, they slide, they come out, they hit the gas out, and that creates a big peaked like whoop in the middle of the corner. And that's how they use their cornering. Whereas the snow bikes, as anyone who's ridden them knows, the smoother you are on the throttle, the more consistent you are, the better you turn. So, we get those berms that push out more so, and they're flat. So it's not particularly invasive to their way of riding. It's just different, and they don't like it.
And I think too that what they're seeing is, and this is not a knock against iStock and what they do, but you got to understand when you have snow bikes and sleds competing on the same track, you can't have a track that favors other, one form of racing over the other. There has to be a middle ground there. So you'll hear, and again, this is nothing negative against iStock, but when snow bikes get on a snow bike specific track, like at ERX when they have the X Games qualifier, or like during Snowbike Cross at X Games, that is when these snow bikes really sing, and you can see what they're ultimately made to do in the racing sense. So, what you see of a snow bike race at an iStock race, while it's still phenomenal and highly competitive, and I still don't think fans get 100% of the snow bike experience, and that's just because it has to be shared with sleds. There has to be a middle ground there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. Like, even for me, enjoyability of riding and racing, I would much rather ride a snowbike specific track. Like, it has more flow to it. It has more space between jumps. It's a lot more open. It's a lot more motocross than it is supercross. When you get to iStock races, that's what they've always been. They've always been tight. All the jumps are close together. It's really technical, really rhythmic. And, that's... I agree that can cause for more issues.
Yeah.
Like, if a snow bike messes up one rhythm section, you're kind of screwed for the whole thing because you can't just get out of it. So you have to be perfect. If you want to, if you want to win, you have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Which doesn't show well for fans. Someone just messed up. They're going slow. Why are they rolling all the jumps? Well, you don't realize how perfect you have to be on a track like that, on a track that's not really made for you.
Yeah, not meant. No, that makes sense. And Jake just posted something too that I thought that there's probably a lot of truth to this. I was actually thinking about this. It's kind of one of those things like, oh, you're taking our sponsors, you're taking our money, track time, all of that. So I'm sure that there's probably an element of that too that kind of comes into play.
Yeah, I haven't heard much of that though. I still think that the general sledders think we're so small that that might not come into their idea yet, their realm yet. But yeah, I don't disagree.
I mean, at the end of the day, right? Like, the more that's going on at these events, the more it's going to help everybody. The more sponsors are going to be like, all right, cool, the Snowbike, we're sponsoring Snowbike, but we know snowmobiles are going to be there, and they know they're going to get coverage and all that. So at the end of the day, is ultimately the more the better. I mean, it's not like anybody's going to lose out with this.
Yeah, and Operation Vet Now, who I don't know if you ever ended up talking with Tony, Kyle.
Yeah, we did talk a little bit.
Cool. Yeah, he's into the snowbike thing. He wanted to do something for iStock this year for the pro snowbike class. I don't know if that amounted to anything, but it has interest from different people to potentially bring in another sponsor that will help us, but overall, like you said, helps the entire show flourish. And like we were all talking about earlier, hitting different target audiences and getting more people to these events to see more things.
Yeah. No, awesome. And that's I'm all about that as well. A question here from Mike. He mentioned, which I know we touched on this, Haley, you haven't quite ridden in the mountains yet. So I guess this question would probably be more towards you, Jackie.
I've only been backcountry once, which is, crazy for how long I've been doing this. But we had a race out in West Yellowstone and got to ride out there for a couple days, and that was so fun. Like,
Nice.
It's awesome to get to go to the top of a mountain and be like, yeah, got all the way up there, So I do have plans to go to a girls' ride out in Oregon in the end of March. So if there's any other ladies out there that would like to ride, it's BYOB, bring your own bike, and we have it's shared on the Snowbike Girls Facebook page.
Yeah,
find all the details there. But
well, and I know the other day when I had posted that, and I know you and I have talked about it, so we want to do one here in Montana as well. I mean, gosh, we've got Shalane Kaiser from Penco Power Products. She's a great snowmobile or snowbiker, and Christina James, who's racing as well. And she's sponsored. She's got a few different sponsors. She's a great snowbiker. So, and I know there's a couple other gals around here too that snowbike. So, I think just within our local community here, we've got a fair amount of women snowbikers. And so I've talked to already several women who I've just as I've been talking and networking, and especially like with the Chamber of Commerce and stuff. And I've told them, I'm like, yeah, we want to do a women's clinic here. And they're like, yes, sign me up. I'm in. So the cool thing is we also have a track, a straight up snowbike track close by here as well, that I've gotten permission to host people there. So part of what I want to do is put together this clinic, and it'd be awesome to have somebody like yourself, Jackie, where, I mean, you race, right? So you'd be able to really be like, hey, any women interested in the racing aspect, let's come out, let's talk about that. And then let's also go on a ride, right? Let's get out there and ride in the backcountry. So, I have 4 bikes that, are going to be available. And then of course, anybody else that wants to bring any. So definitely stay tuned for that. I want to do that, and I'm all about it. So hopefully we can put that one on, and then the one in Oregon, and then that way between the 2 places we can get a bunch of people to come.
Well, let's plan it for the weekend after that one in Oregon.
That'd be awesome.
I'll road trip and loop out.
Yeah, at the end of March, you said.
Yeah, so that would put that weekend, the first weekend in April.
That'll actually work perfect. Yep,
let's do that, and I'll hit it on my way home.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. So we'll plan the logistics.
Fly out and meet us.
What's that?
Haley, you can fly out and meet us.
I want to. I need to hit a clinic, get my bearings, and kind of learn the how-to in the backcountry. And then, I got to get my hands on a bike and figure out how to come to this women's ride day. But definitely want to hit a clinic first.
Well, it'll be all in one.
Perfect.
One day of the clinic, and then next day is the ride. And I gotta tell you guys, spring riding where we live is incredible. I mean, we'll go riding some days, after work. We'll be like, hey, let's leave at 4 because we get these long nights. Just like you guys, once summer hits, spring. So we'll go ride till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then we'll just ride out in the dark. We'll go and ride the zone, and then we'll ride out in the dark with our lights on. And you'll go get 4 hours of riding. And the cool thing is, we call it hero snow. You can go anywhere. You can climb anything. You can go anywhere. You got sunny days. So yeah, spring riding is definitely one of my favorite.
Man, pumped. Yeah, let's make it happen.
Yeah. Heck yeah. We'll definitely do that. Yeah. And Tessa too. That's right. Shannon's wife, Tessa, she's a shredder, man. If you guys have not seen Tessa ride, she gets after it. And of course she's up in Canada too. So yeah, we'll see if the border's open. Maybe we can do a Canada ride too. That'd be awesome.
There's a lot of girls up in Canada that are really active on the Snowbike Girls page. And I got to meet Tessa out in Colorado last winter. So hello.
And what's Brooke? Is it Brooke Estelle, or I'm trying to think of her last name?
Brooke and Tam and
Tam Brop.
And I'm pretty sure Cass Pro, who we were talking about on our last podcast, Haley, she's up there too. She's a Yeti ambassador this year, so that's pretty awesome.
Heck yeah. No, it's super cool seeing just a lot of different women riders. And I know there's some over here in the Coeur d'Alene area. I've seen some of their posts that are, sponsored and whatnot. And then, of course, what's her face? Victoria down in Tahoe area. She rides. And there's a bunch of ladies. So I'm sure that a bunch of them would be open to coming and helping out.
Yep. I'm pretty sure Victoria is going to come up to Oregon, and Melissa, she's from Washington. She's going to come out to Oregon too. So, it's it's going to be a good, time for a road trip for people to get out of the house after being home all winter.
Yep.
Nice.
Echo Bravo Kilo. She said she's going to be there.
Right on.
Yeah. Yeah. So we'll just plan it. Like, let's just plan to do it, after the Oregon ride. We'll figure out the exact dates. We'll do it in Montana. I'll get like I said, I'll have the track as long as there's snow. There should be snow down low, but if not, there's plenty of places to ride up high. So no issues there. And I've got some really cool areas that I've taken a lot of newbies in, because like last year I did a ride with my dad and brother, brand new, and we did a 3-day ride, and I mean, it was incredible. Like, it was their first time getting after it, and there's definitely probably some curse words and frustrations in it all, but I mean, they were doing stuff that they just were like, I can't believe what we can do. I just kept hearing that over and over, and I think that's one of the fun things about it.
Sounds like Haley's first ride.
Yeah, there were a few words thrown around. When I get like flustered, and if I get really flustered, I start to curse in ways that don't make sense, like son of a damn.
That's great. So what, is there anything else you guys wanted to kind of chat about in terms of just things you wanted to get out there, any sponsors, that sort of thing that you wanted to talk about?
I think the biggest thing that I want to push is, and Jackie mentioned it, is that we have, if you're in the Midwest, and even if you're not, if you can even travel to the Midwest for a race weekend or what have you, like if you ever just wanted to try a hand at either practicing on a snowcross track, there are resources available in Minnesota. I know you can up at the Climb Compound in Aurora, Minnesota, which is way up on the North Shore, or ERX Motor Park in Elk River, Minnesota. That's towards the Twin Cities. You can go out, you can practice there. Like I said, look for opportunities where there are free to the public ride days, or I should say open to the public ride days. But also beyond that, look for regional races with AMSOIL Championship Snowcross. They have a regional series. ERX does. There is also that Pro Light Snowbike class within ISOC. So it's, don't let it intimidate you. This is really, really a cool opportunity for growth on the racing side of things. So that's what I would encourage everyone to do, is just to not be intimidated about it. If you have any questions about ISOC or ERX, I work with both. So please don't hesitate to hit me up and ask away on racing opportunities.
Yep, me too.
Awesome.
I guess we never even touched on the fact that there's no snowbiking at X Games this year.
I know, it's such a bummer.
Yeah.
It's something we'd like to put out of our memories at this point. We're so soured about it.
They're like, we'll do snowboarding and everything else, but just no moto.
Yeah, no motorsports, which is basically all snowbiking stuff now, which is, super unfortunate. I guess I don't really know why they didn't do it. It's probably money, if I were to guess, but major bummer for everyone who races. Like, we see larger turnouts before X Games in the ISOC series. People want to get gate drops in, they want to get practice, they want to race their competition, feel out the field before they get to the big race. And I don't really predict that we're going to see that this year. As we were kind of talking about earlier, Haley, the entry list for Snowbike is small. I kind of predict it to be small, which is kind of why I alluded to, I hope 2021 doesn't kill us. But, all we can do is try to get more people into it. And especially like Haley was saying, at the local and entry level racing.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to layer on what you were saying, Haley, as I mentioned, we have now a dedicated snowbike track just outside of where I live here, outside of Kalispell, Montana. So if anybody's in, 2-3 hour radius, whatever, just hit me up, and happy to take them out there and, kind of show them the track. And again, I'm not a racer. I'm thinking about doing entering in the NASBA race, they're going to come up here to Whitefish area. And more than anything, the reason why I don't is because I know myself, and I just push myself till the very end. And I'm like, I'm going to break a bike or break a bone. And so I'm like, I don't know, but I had a lot of fun watching the guys race last year. And so we'll see. I may end up jumping in there and racing as well. So yeah, any other parting words, guys? You leave your websites and also your Instagram and Facebook handles and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I guess one other thing I forgot to mention, just to piggyback about what I had said about ISOC and regional racing, is I completely forgot to mention CSRA Snowcross in Canada. That's where Yannick Boucher is racing this year. So please forgive me. An opportunity to race up in Canada.
That's all happening, right? Like that's all happening this season.
Yep. I guess I think Yannick said one of their, Valcourt, the GPSV in Quebec, that one did get canceled. So I think it's down to a four race weekends now, but that's, the schedule is still on as scheduled otherwise. So if you're in Canada, you can't commit to coming down to the States, there's your opportunity right there.
Sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So do you guys want to share your handles, your websites, any of that stuff?
Yes.
You don't have to.
Sorry. You can find me. It's I spaced. My handle's pretty straightforward for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. It's at Speedshift Haley. And the Minne Moto Show, we are on Instagram and Facebook, and that's Minne as in MINNE, like Minnesota, Moto Show.
Yep. Awesome. And you guys can find me at Riess27 on pretty much everything. JRIESS27. And my bakery is Jr27 Race Bakery. So if you'd like to purchase some treats, I appreciate it. And hope to see you guys all at the races soon.
Awesome. Thanks. And don't forget about and Snowbike Girls. If you just look up Snowbike Girls, you'll see the Instagram, and I'll make sure to post it as well. And make sure you guys all follow Snowbike Girls and follow Jackie on there. Cool.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you everyone for sticking with us and for tuning in. This was fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks, ladies. Appreciate your time and appreciate your guys' energy and passion for the sport and what you guys are doing. And just thanks so much, and looking forward to seeing more races and seeing you guys out there.
Thank you.
For sure. Likewise.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody.